Hello. So here we are. This is my first video for my YouTube channel. And today we are going to be talking about a particular topic. But before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Prashanth. Dr. Prashanth Vishwanath. I am based in Bangalore. Okay. And here is my a student of mine. She is Vasudhara, and she studies in Government Homeopathic Medical College. And this is going to be my first video for my YouTube channel, which currently I have not named, but pretty soon, by the time we upload this video, we will have a name for it also. Anyway, so the idea for us in this particular introductory video, we are going to talk about certain things. And the topic for today's discussion is something called introversion and extroversion. Okay, so these are terms which Charles Gustav Jung, he basically came up with these terms, introversion and extroversion. Now, generally, I just wanted to share with my viewers how these YouTube videos came about and how are they uploaded. Basically, I have a center in Bangalore. It is called ISHA. ISHA actually stands for Intuitive School of Homeopathy and Allied Sciences. So now, basically, when I say intuitive school, there's a particular reason why I named my center or my clinic or the place where I practice ISHA. It's called ISHA Therapeutics. The reason I did that was that a lot of my practice is based on the intuitive school. By that, I mean that I am not a person who comes up with a prescription for a particular patient, primarily through the use of going through books or doing a whole lot of repertorization. I'm a homeopathic doctor, but I don't go through a whole lot of repertorization, too much delving into materia medica. I do that, of course, as a part of my training. We are all required to do that. But my primary prescriptions for patients, clients alike, it is based on a certain amount of perception. You can call it intuition about what is required by the patient. And so that is why this is called the intuitive school, more in the videos that we are going to upload in the coming days. But for today, I'm just going to tell you how this video came about, or generally many of the videos for these YouTube videos, ideas rather, many of the ideas for these YouTube videos, how they come about. Generally, they come about when I'm walking or jogging in the morning in Lal Bagh, or when I'm walking alone. These thoughts, these ideas, these processes, they just come into my mind, and I would just like to share them with you. That is basically the whole point of starting this YouTube channel. The way I basically believe in this concept of what we know in Indian philosophy as the Akashic records. Akashic records basically are the storehouse of knowledge in Indian philosophy, wherein all knowledge, past, present, and future, whatever ever came and whatever is and whatever ever is going to be, these are all stored in the Akashic records, which is a field of energy. You just have to be perceptive enough to tap into that energy and download it, if you will, into your mind. So for me, in my practice, I rely a lot on intuition and these kind of perceptions, which come seemingly from nowhere. Jung has a particular way of looking at it. He calls it synchronicity. And whatever may be the term, it is just a certain flash of intuition, something like how Kekule came up with his benzene ring structure. So with that in mind, with all the introduction done and that out of the way, let us talk about the intuitive school, the first topic of the intuitive school of homeopathy, which is introversion and extroversion. So now, see, the whole basis of human life. Charles Gustav Jung was the first person in the history. He was a great psychologist. In his heyday, he was probably the most sought after psychologist that the world had to offer. Was from, I think, yeah, he was from Switzerland, and a German person. I'm not sure his nationality, what it was, but he was a German speaking person. And the funny thing, the the unique thing about Young was, rather the funny thing today is Young is largely forgotten. Though, the concepts like introvert, extrovert, the father complex, the mother complex, and even the so-called lie detector, they are all the gifts of Young to the modern world. So now, be that as it may, today, the very concept that we are discussing today, introversion and extroversion, they are coming from Jung, from his understanding of human psychology. So, broadly speaking, the whole idea revolves around the fact that we are human beings generally throughout the world are divided into two kinds of personalities. They are, at one end, you have the introvert. The introvert person is largely defined as a person who likes staying within himself. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. He likes being within himself more and more, and spending time within himself. You can say he likes spending more time in his own inner world. Now, this is a rudimentary definition of introversion, or who is an introvert. And a person who is an introvert, he has certain characteristics. He has a very limited group of friends. He's comfortable in his own little space. He may be happy with maybe being in his house and maybe eating alone. He may prefer listening to music alone, all those things. Now, when we look at the extrovert at the other end of the spectrum, okay, what do we notice is that we have a situation wherein an extroverted person, he wants to interact more with the world. He wants to talk a lot with his friends. Maybe he wants to have I should say, a, a person who is more interactive with the world, if you will, and so has a lot of friends. He probably goes to parties. He lives, simply put, more in the external world. So the introvert lives more in the internal world. The extrovert lives more in the external world. This is the basic difference. Now, why are we talking about introversion and extroversion, and why that becomes so very important in today's world? See, as long as the introversion, the person who is an introvert, or the behavioral patterns which are introverted, are within certain limits, they are okay, perfectly fine. You have many introverted kids, nothing wrong with that. What actually happens is, when the introversion uh, the so-called the behavior of introversion becomes more and more localized, the person starts becoming more and more unto himself, and starts interact very rarely to interact with the outside world, more and more to stay with himself, to the extent that he has to be roused from his consciousness wherever he's occupied. And he's like, his mother probably has to talk to him or rouse him from his occupation, whatever he's occupied with, maybe some painting or his own thoughts or whatever. Then you enter a realm wherein the introversion becomes abnormal. Then you start to enter a realm wherein the kid, who no longer is able to communicate effectively with the outside world, which ultimately reaches out to a certain kind or a form of autism, wherein the child or the growing human being, is not able to communicate with the outside world. So if you take introversion, if the introversion behavior exceeds a certain limit, it crosses a certain threshold, then we are looking at autistic behaviors, right? Now, the same thing happens even with the extroverted kind of kid. Let us assume you have an extroverted kind of kid. As long as he's good, he's able to interact with the outside world, okay? And he has a bunch of friends, and things are looking good, and he has a lot of parties. Now, unfortunately, what happens is, quite a lot, even here it can go and shoot outside the mark. Extroversion can go beyond its threshold, and that also can lead to behavioral disorders. Let us assume a person is so preoccupied, for example, with the outside world, that in effect he cannot focus on a single aspect for more time. He's distracted, easily distracted. You would have probably noticed many kids, they want to interact with the outside world. The moment they interact with the outside world, they get bored very quickly. Then they want to interact with the other half of the world or some other aspect of the world. And so you have a situation wherein many children, they become hyperactive. They are extroverted, but they become hyperactive. And this particular behavioral disorder, we basically call attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is a pretty common disorder, which is called ADHD. What I want to basically communicate to you in this video is that both introversion and extroversion, when you take it to their limits, when these behavioral patterns become abnormal, one can lead to, both of them can lead to autistic kind of behaviors, attention deficit hyperactive disorders, and other kinds of abnormal behavior when they exceed a certain threshold. They overshoot or undershoot their limits. So you can think of two limits. Okay, within this limit, both introversion and extroversion are okay. Now, the moment you exceed these limits, you either overshoot or undershoot. So you basically, if this is the, let us say, if this is the limit of introversion and extroversion, the extreme on my right hand that you see, if you overshoot the right hand boundary, it becomes extroversion, assuming the right hand is the limit of extroversion. Similarly, the left hand, if it is the limit of introversion, if you undershoot or you shoot on the other aspect of my left hand side, you go further towards my left, which I will call undershoot, you can become you can develop abnormal behavioral pathologies. So these are important, when for what we are going to discuss next. So now the second aspect of it is what causes these abnormal behavioral patterns. Now, and this is where there are there's a lot of research that has gone on into, various people trying to figure out why somebody becomes, for example, autistic, why somebody becomes hyperactive, and why is it that these behaviors are overshooted or undershooted. So now the aspect of this, why something happens, there are many reasons for it. I am going to today focus on one major aspect of it, which is the kind of behavioral patterns of the father, the mother, and the what I would call the average kind of atmosphere in the house and in the community as such, where the kid grows up. Okay, so now let us assume, and let us, in this video specifically, we are going to focus more on the introverted person. Let us assume that you have a father who is more involved with routine day-to-day work. He doesn't interact with many people, many friends. And so his wife also is somewhat introverted, is more comfortable inside the house. You see what I'm saying? So now such a child, when he grows up, he is growing into what I call an autistic energy atmosphere. Okay, to begin with, it is not autistic energy atmosphere. It is probably something like an introverted energetic atmosphere. And this has a certain bearing. The atmosphere in which the child grows up has a certain bearing on the the growth of the child. The reason for that relates to what we call as epigenetics. Epigenetics is a science of how the genes of a child or a person who is young and who is growing gets influenced by the environment around him. So basically, long story short, epigenetics just means that certain genes are unmasked and are more amenable to environmental influences depending on the interaction with the environment. So a growing child, as he grows, what happens is there's a certain autistic, if he finds a certain introverted, forgive the term autistic, introverted energy, and if the parents are too involved with themselves, for example, the father, he just maybe goes to office, he comes back from office, and he's busy with some work or the other, and the mother is also in her own world. For example, the mother is just happy watching some television serials or reading her own books. This is a common you understand a situation in today's modern world. And the father is busy with his own forum of occupation, and he comes to the office 9 to 6, and then he gets busy on a computer. He hardly talks to anybody. He's busy with his computer and his work. There's no interaction, hardly any friends coming into the house. Neither does the kid go out. Maybe they take him out for a walk, but that's it. The kid does not get to interact with other children. We live in an atmosphere today in most cities, not only in India, throughout the world, wherein the interaction of the kid with the other children is anyway minimal. But if the parents also have an introverted kind of behavior, wherein very few people visit them, and even they themselves, they are in their own worlds, then there is a strong possibility that because of this introverted energy, the child, the genes which were related to interacting with the world, they never get unmasked. They never get activated. And so, as a child grows, he grows abnormally. He develops more of a introverted and in the extreme autistic behavior. And this is very important for us to understand that as a child grows, he needs to see other children. He needs to, for example, even see not just other children, he needs to see other pets. You see, Vasu here, she has a cat in her own house, and she can tell what joy it can bring to a kid. You grew up with a cat, right?
Yes.
It gave you a lot of happiness, right? Say a few words about it.
Like it relieves a lot of stress. Actually, just having a cat and going to the outside world, we have a lot of stress in day-to-day life. But once we come home and once we see our pets, so automatically we forget, or temporarily we come out of that stress for some time. It cheers us up. It changes our mood.
Correct.
So it affects our mental health also positively.
Correct. So as Vasu was saying, this is very important. And these days we have a paranoia about cats and dogs. With cats, there is a paranoia that the fur of the cats causes allergy or asthma, or they are not very clean. But in fact, cats are one of the most cleanest living beings on earth. They clean themselves so much probably that you may not even be able to bath so effectively. I also have cats, so I'm able to vouch for that. But be that as it may, so the important thing is the interaction of the human being as he grows with other living beings, with other children, okay, with other pets, with even a plant, with other natural living beings. If this is curtailed, then and I don't need to say, we are living in concrete jungles here. Interaction with living beings and interaction with natural environments is happening more and more rarely these days. Naturally, more and more children are going through this autistic spectrum. You see, this is one part of it. And this is what I wanted to focus my very first video in. It's a very simple video. I have a very simple house. I believe in simple means. So let me know what you think about my video, and do you agree that the so-called the way we bring up our children has a strong bearing on their mental behaviors, on many children, whether they become abnormal or not, probably relies upon the way we bring up our children, right? Now let me in closing finish this off by talking about hyperactive disorders. So, and this I'll be brief. I'm not, an expert on hyperactive disorders. See, the problem is that hyperactivity means a lot of energy in the person, right? You know, why does a child have a lot of energy? And then for expending that energy, there's a lot of theories. People actually make their children play a lot. I know a friend of mine who has put his child into playing cricket, and then another child has been put to play badminton so much so that he loses his energy. Now the important thing is, why is he getting this so much? Why is he having this so much pent up energy? We call it pent up energy which needs release. Why does a child have so much pent up energy? I mean, let us talk about purely the way we bring up our children, and then maybe there are other factors. We can even talk of, there is a growing lobby of people around the world who basically fault vaccinations and the modern day, drugs for these troubles. But I'm not getting into that argument. I just want to know, you have a child, you are bringing him up, now if you are able to bring him up, okay, so properly, if you're able to bring him up properly, what why should the child who could have been brought up properly turn into a hyperactive or an autistic child? So basically what I mean is that assuming that even some of the other, there are other reasons, maybe a recovery from an illness, maybe a vaccination, or maybe a strong drug reaction. Is it not possible, just by bringing the child in the proper manner, that we are able to mitigate many of these circumstances? So isn't it true that, a mother's love, or the way we bring up our child with love and affection, and with a proper understanding of what it means to be bringing up the child, my understanding of hyperactivity is basically pent up energy, an energy in a child which has not been released at appropriate intervals. Maybe the child wanted to go out, he wanted to see the world. At one level, if he accepts that he cannot see the world, and because of the limitations that his parents have, the parents may not be in a position to take him outside in the world, and maybe they are, inwardly looking, maybe they both are introverted. So what does a child who is born as an extrovert do? He has a lot of pent up energy. Left to him alone, he wants to go out and play around and maybe get drenched in the rain and be very happy and release his energy. So as he grows, you don't allow that. When he goes and gets drenched in the rain, what do we say? Oh, you are going to get drenched in the rain, you come back. You are going to get asthma, so you come back. So we are very protective, you see, of our children. So he cannot go out. Now, assuming he cannot go out, and so he keeps on staying at home, where does the energy of the child, which should have been naturally released as he's growing up, go? It gets inside his system. In fact, it gets buried deeper and deeper in his psyche, for lack of a better word. I think that is the right word also. So when his energy, pent up energy, gets inside, suppressed within him, you reach a point wherein that child who is naturally an extrovert can no longer contain that pent up energy. So he just wants to get out. He maybe wants to go out. He rushes out. Maybe he's doing some work that his teacher has given him. He can't focus because the energy is too much. So maybe for the child, it is not necessary that you put him in a school like we do today. He wants to just go out and play because there is pent up energy. But we have a situation wherein in today's world, whether we like it or not, every child from 9 to 4 is bottled up in a certain class, right? He may be perfectly fine, maybe later on, after he basically goes out, plays, and expends his pent up energy. Maybe after a couple of years, he's ready maybe for school proper. He has expended his energy, and now his behavior patterns has returned to normal. But no, we compound the problem. More and more the child wants to go out. We say, you please sit at home, you study, this is important, you are performing poorly in school, you are a C grade, you are a D grade, that is more important for the parent, you see, more important than the fact that there is a certain behavioral problem because of the pent-up energy. The child at this particular point of time needs more outdoor activity, and he needs more natural outdoor activity. Not like, 9 to 4 you be there, I will give you 1 hour outside just to play, and then you release his energy. The release of pent up energy, which has been suppressed in a way, or completely completely in block, it has been put inside the system without any release, needs more natural ways of releasing. Some of the more natural ways of releasing, when I grew up in Delhi, we used to simply go skip our school, go and play. I used to release my pent up energy like that, skip my class. The whole day, nobody would know. I would simply roam around, we had a huge playground and some garden. You just go and expend all the energy. And then once we have expended and even, the school, it was not like that. I don't know when you grow up, but when I was growing up, we could take holidays. We would go out and, we would maybe play around, and then school, everything was never serious until it was maybe your 8th or 9th standard, and all of us have turned out quite pretty well. Okay, and it's not that we should not study, but I personally feel that we are placing too much emphasis on systematic learning, so much so that a second or a third standard student, the mother says, your child is getting a B grade or a C grade, naak kat jayegi, it's a humiliation. Everybody is getting A grade, and so this has to stop. This is the primary reason for what we have termed as attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I personally believe, if the child were to be allowed to evolve himself spontaneously, expending his energy, he would come to at least a certain kind of balance, and he would naturally go and be more focused in his studies or whatever he wants to be. So these are some thoughts about behavioral disorders, why certain things happen to children, and what we can do to mitigate it. We have to find more normal ways of, allowing children more interaction with the outside world, and more normal ways of channeling their pent up energies. And if that can happen, I'm pretty sure, a lot of things will and can change for the new generation. And lastly, because this is a channel which is not specific to homeopathy, but because I am a homeopath, we will talk briefly about certain remedies which can help, both autistic and, hyperactive children. So Vasudha, this is for you, okay? Certain prominent remedies which are indicated for the autistic spectrum. And for references, you have to consult the references, which I will just mention in this video. So the number one remedy for autism, which is more inward looking, is a remedy called helium. Okay. Yeah. And for this, you have to refer why, etc. You need to refer Jan Scholten's analysis of why helium is a effective remedy for autism. Another very good remedy for autism, especially for more inward looking people who don't want to come out, something like who are in their own world. You see, there are a lot of children who are, like Mungeri Lal ke Haseen Sapne, they are lost in their own world. They daydream a lot. That kind of daydreaming, such children and patients benefit well with cannabis indica. That is another very great remedy. One more remedy for children who may have been traumatized at birth because of coming out of the birth canal, and some surgery was done, they did not turn out right. So they are confused and they are kind of lost in the world. So for them, see, by no means these are, please, these are not prescriptions. These are some thoughts, some remedies which may be indicated. For that kind of lost children, Naks Mashallah. Okay, so now on the other end of the spectrum, we have for extremely hyperactive children, Tarantula is a very good remedy, one of the very good remedies for hyperactive children. Other remedies which are very, very, suppose there's very, very hyperactive, they are very restless, very hot, very thin, and very hot and very restless individuals. Iodine is a very good remedy, in which case you will see in some cases some symptoms of hyperthyroidism also, or some thyroid abnormality. Now, other remedies wherein you have absolutely lack of attention, can't talk, can't see, they are just running from one end to another. So somewhere even maybe totally introverted, sometimes they may be extroverted also. So you can think of some remedies like, for example, stramonium. And sometimes stramonium can even be extroverted also in terms of the hyperactivity. So that those are a few good remedies, and with that we have a wrap for our first YouTube video. So please press the bell icon, the like button, and tell us how our first video was. Thank you very much.
Thank you.